r/AskReddit by Planet Reddit. What's the creepiest thing that happened on internet and is still available to see? God, I love these. The monthly I shouldn't read it but I'm still going to at work and still be scared shitless thread. There was this YouTuber who did anime reviews that ended up killing his family. His videos start off normal but over time he starts to speak weirdly. In his last video his voice sounds really shaky. You can still find his channel if you search Mr. Anime on YouTube. Those must have been some really horrendous reviews to kill his family. The suicide of Martin Manley. He was a local, to Kansas City area, sports statistician. He decided that he hated that death was something he has no control over. So he planned his own suicide after he decided that he had lived a long enough life. He planned the whole thing out and had pre-mailed an explanation and all needed documents to his family so that they'd arrive the day it happened. He didn't want his kids finding out through the news. He also didn't want to traumatize anyone who isn't accustomed to seeing death gore. So he did it in the police station parking lot off to the side and called his own suicide in seconds before pulling the trigger so that people who are used to this sort of thing would be responding. He also set up a website explaining why he did it and explaining the whole process. MartinManleyEprisy.com link. He researched what he needed to do to ensure as many organs as possible would be donated harvested. It's really weird reading something from someone that knew they're going to be dead. It's different from reading something from someone who is terminally ill. Though you'd think it's no different. He also thought it would be funny to mess with people so he put GPS coordinates on a page on his website that mentions where he buried his $200,000 coin collection. A bunch of local people went to the local arboretum where the coordinates pointed to and police had to intervene. KCTV5.com link. Edit. Changed wording. I suck at words. Some wife on r/confession confessed that her husband started sneaking out at nights. The reason he was sniffing poopy diapers of their baby son for hours on end and possibly getting sexually aroused by it. This is just entirely beyond my understanding. I don't know where to begin with this one. The craziest thing about this to me is everyone blaming her for being freaked out and blaming her and telling her that her husband has a perfectly normal baby shit fetish and she's the a-hole for not blindly accepting him. PaulaPlanetComics.com link. Might not be the creepiest, but I can handle a lot of disturbing. This one got to me. A childhood friend of my husband's. The guy was insanely brilliant. Literally. Husband lost touch over the years. These were his comics. The very last one was his suicide note. They had the memorial at his condo. He had blocked out all the windows and wrote in Sharpie all over the walls. It was his breakdown. Trying to find meaning before he took his life. One of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen. It's interesting that you've posted one of the most ducked up links in this whole thread, yet it's the typical blood guts gore links that people find to be dark. The fact he chronicles the last weeks of his life through emails on the white page is freaky. The transcript with the online therapist is sad and disturbing. But the audio recording of his LSD trip and where he's having a full-blown conversation with himself in another voice. You win the thread. This is the only one that got me. Call me weird. I'm like, I've heard about a million ghosts and a million corpses and all of this fell flat to me after having seen some things. This guy hit home to me. I've gone through many a mind losing myself and have hurt hard over existentialism. This is interesting and so sad. It hurts because I know what it's like to think so loudly you can't even fathom wording it to someone and you essentially feel alone. I think I need to leave now. Sitting and smiling. A guy called Benjamin Bennett has a YouTube channel where he posts videos of himself sitting and smiling in an empty room. The videos are all 4 hours long. And as of this comment there are 249 of them. In one of his videos, an intruder breaks into his home at the 2:36 am mark and despite opening the door to his room, saying hello, and quickly leaving, the dude doesn't even flinch and completes the rest of the video. Benjamin said afterwards that the laptop that he was using for the recording was the only thing in the house worth stealing. I was looking for this in here. The intruder got so creeped out he left, haha. The scary thing for me is that the intruder said hello? What would have happened if the guy had responded? Everything about that encounter is oddly creepy. This guy has nearly clocked up 1,000 hours of this. It has to be some form of meditation or something. He seems pretty nice otherwise. Death of Hiroshi Ouchi. Dude was a nuke tech who was told to do a bad procedure. Got a fatal dose of radiation. He knew soon that he was a dead man. Hospital decided to experiment on him and keep him alive. Some of his last words before losing ability to speak were, "I'm not your guinea pig." Searching his name pulls up the very horrifying pictures of his suspended and radiation burned body. Hospital kept him alive for months artificially and with multiple resuscitations. Ouchie indeed. Ike. And I have zero interest in googling it because I don't want to see the picture again. He told them to keep him alive so they could study the effects of radiation on the body. I think his last word was mother, which is about 10 times worse. Anyway. Someone with a stronger stomach will have to confirm. I was once friends with a guy on LoverJournal. He was married and had a kid. And we would occasionally exchange pleasantries over events in our lives or family pictures we shared. It seemed like his relationship was going south and he was upset over his wife's cheating via Goodreads. From his point of view, he was just a father trying to keep his family together while his wife tried to ruin his life. They were going to divorce. Eventually, I lost touch and stopped using LJ. I went back earlier this year to my old account to see how he was doing and I saw his last post was dated the 19th of October 2011, in which he talks about his weight loss from stress. I googled his name and found out that he killed himself and his son a few days later. Here's the link to the article. Google.com link. I can't link his LJ because it's friends only. But it's still up. Edit. Here's some screen caps from his journal. It's surprisingly mundane. The one where some guy was playing a game upstairs with noise cancelling headphones on, then took them off and heard someone threatening his wife. Turns out the guy was raping his wife downstairs while his daughter was sat crying on the floor while he was upstairs playing video games. Creepy as duck. I believe that was from the "Have you ever killed someone in self-defense" thread or something to that effect. He killed that dude. And I mean, who wouldn't? Link. The murder of Junko Furuta, 44 Days of Hell. Don't read the whole article if you're young, since it's still the creepiest thing I've ever read, and also because there are some disturbing photos, probably real evidence. That's the story of a teenager girl confined, raped and tortured for 44 days straight and finally died at the last day. She begged for her to be killed instead since she couldn't stand the pain, but the tortures continued. They put a ducking light bulb in her vagina, turned it on, and watched as she started screaming as it got hotter and hotter, burning her ducking vagina. That's the part I really remember. The entire thing is ducked up though. Why is Japan's legal system so lenient? The level of punishment these people received is terrifyingly unjust. After what that girl went through, none of these people should have been allowed on the streets again. The dead bodies left on Everest is pretty creepy. Imgur.com link. NSFL shows the corpses of climbers. The controversial thing about David is that over 30 climbers passed him on their way to the top and noticed he was still alive. Some even spoke to him. However, on Everest, there is little to nothing you can do to save another life. Attempts to help can likely result in the death of yourself and the one you're trying to help. That's a harsh death. Man. Witnessing 30 people deciding it's too dangerous to help you before you eventually die. Since I found this ducking terrible, I researched a bit by myself. And 30 people not helping is an overstatement. There were attempts of helping, just no successful ones. People were supplying him with oxygen, standing him up, moving him into the sun, etc. but failed. What added to the problem was the level of preparation, Carr told the Washington Post. It almost looks like he, David Sharp, had a death wish and noted some issues with Sharp's climb. He went alone, tried to summit too late in the day, and had too little bottled oxygen and no radio. Also, his Wikipedia intro kind of emphasizes that attitude. Sharp was more of a purist related to mountaineering, and did not believe in using a guide for mountains he was familiar with, local climbing assistance or artificial enhancements, such as high altitude drugs or supplementary oxygen, to reach the top of a mountain. Basically, he gambled with his life when hiking up like that. Some said he was doomed already by starting the ascent. I doubt that. Since he was up there, not summiting, twice the years before. But what sure didn't help was the weather conditions. Sharp had made an attempt to reach the summit during the late afternoon and, presumably having reached it, had descended during one of the coldest nights of the year. TL. Doctor, his mission was a bit of a gamble. And this time the odds went in his favor. Not as awesome of a headline as 30 people abandoning him, but probably closer to the truth. There was a Reddit post a long time ago about a woman who recorded her breathing during the night using an app on her phone. And when she listened to it the next day, she heard a man's voice in the recording telling her to go back to sleep. Edit. Here it is. Give it a read if you want nightmares. Listen to the audio recording. Reddit.com /ghosts comments /1u894f experience using Sleeper's Android app. This is the kind of stuff this thread needs. Less gore. This is so scary. I don't think I'd be able to sleep in that house again. Can't find the post. But there was a Reddit user who was in high school and got knocked out in the parking lot while he was unconscious. He continued his life in his head. He went on to meet the love of his life, raise a family and enjoy success. He details his life while he was knocked out with a sense of longing and sadness. Eventually he noticed a lamp that was two-dimensional. It bothered him for weeks until his wife and family left him. He realized that the reality he was experiencing was not real and began to go insane. Not long after, he woke up to the school officer carrying him to his car to take him to the hospital. He went to therapy for a long time. He dreams about his kids from the other life and wakes up crying and missing them constantly. It's fascinating, creepy and extremely depressing. I was in a medically induced coma for a few days. All of those TV shows depicting coma dreams as a trope seem remarkably accurate. It all feels so real. I still struggle to differentiate what actually happened and what didn't. But did he go back to the carpet store? Pretty much everything to do with the Steubenville rape case. Here's the Wikipedia page. And some notable quotes. I can never quite get my head around how bizarrely rapes involving young sports players are dealt with in the USA. So often you hear about them and the victim is blamed for potentially destroying this young man's career. Surely the rapist ruined his own career by, you know, being a rapist? I don't get it either. But what really gets me is how she, the victim, was essentially blamed by some of her community, as well as plenty of online commentators, for her own rape. I wasn't too fazed by the details of the crime itself. Being on the internet starts to desensitize you to those kinds of horrors. But I would have thought that the laws and her community would have been there for her to give her some semblance of justice and help. Instead, the perpetrators were punished at the minimum extent of the law and she was treated horribly. It's no wonder that after so many cases, that the process has come to be colloquially called the second rape. I'm just wondering how much more of this is going to happen before I become desensitized to this too. Me was online posts looking for people to eat on the Cannibal Cafe. Oddly enough, he became a vegetarian while in prison. Well, yeah, he couldn't get his meat of choice. Here you can listen to the recording of Byron Smith. He waited in ambush in his home while two teenagers broke in. It didn't really count as self-defense because he planned on killing them and set it up as a trap. They'd broken in before. Also, instead of calling police when they were wounded and no longer a threat, he waited a little while and then finished them off with more shooting. 3:18 for the first kill. 13:40 is the second. He realizes around the 15-minute mark that the girl is still breathing, so he puts a gun under her chin and kills her. Really creepy. I feel like people who steal should hear this. It's a lesson that you never know how ducking insane the guys you are stealing from. One day it's an old lady, the next it's this psycho. On a related note, I'm looking forward to seeing that movie about the teenagers who try to rob a blind guy and he ends up trapping them in his house and hunting them down. But I forget the name. The Station nightclub fire. My fiance's best friend almost went to the show but decided instead he needed the money and worked overtime overnight without informing his parents. He didn't immediately know what to think when his mother ran over to hug him while crying when he got home. She thought he had been killed. I used to work with a guy in Connecticut that had previously been a firefighter. One day we were shooting the shit when a great white song came on. I was about to make a god-awful station nightclub joke when he said, "Man, hearing this song ducks with me." I was at the door after the fire was out, directing people where to put the bodies. He also said that they pretty much had to chase the bus because they were trying to leave when they got out. I also remember when it happened. I grew up in RI, about 20 minutes away. It was absolutely crazy to think that would happen. Nothing ducking happens in RI. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.